So millions of people are voluntarily quitting their jobs in what economists are calling the Great Resignation. And it's leaving many workplaces seriously understaffed. We talked with UW business professor Thomas Gilbert about why we're seeing so many help wanted signs right now and where we go from here.
Help wanted signs are a good thing, right? This is a signal that demand, customer demand, consumer demand is back up, probably even at back to levels than before the pandemic. And so that's good. Like, we shouldn't look at help wanted signs and say, oh, this is a terrible situation. There is one underlying factor that is still there for why people are unwilling to go back to work, and that's fear. There is still some surveys. I was looking at some data. There's some surveys that suggest, 3 to 4 million people are still saying, I am fearful for my health, for the health of my loved ones, my children, my family. Still, young children still cannot be vaccinated. And there are people who are fearful of bringing the virus back to their home and therefore unwilling to take jobs where the risk of contagion is higher.
I want to get back to the why in a moment, but I do want to ask a question that I've heard a lot of people mention is that, during the pandemic, some workers were actually making more money staying at home because of that extra $600 a week from the government with unemployment benefits. Has that had an impact on what we're seeing now?
So for sure, it's played a role, right? People were able to say, okay, well, I can afford to stay home. Maybe I was laid off or there's furloughs or whatever, and I can afford to stay home to rethink my life, to rethink my career because of these extra unemployment benefits. And then it became, well, if I the argument would suggest, indeed, if I'm paid just as much, my replacement wage is 1-to-1 to stay home, then why would I go back to my old job? And that answer seems to make sense. We have a very interesting summer that happened where some states removed these extra pandemic unemployment benefits back in June. And some states waited until September when they expired. And the difference is really minimal. So yes, the states with these extra unemployment benefits were removed in June. They got a decrease in unemployment that was a little bigger than in the other states. But that difference is so small.
What about some of the issues that unfortunately impact women more than men is the issue of childcare? There is literally, it's almost impossible to find. I know this as a mother myself. And therefore, women are not as able to go back to their old jobs. Is that something you're seeing kind of really affect the economy as a whole?
It's definitely affecting on the women re-entering the economy for sure. The female labor participation rate is at its lowest. It's been decreasing through the pandemic, and we are seeing nothing suggesting it's going to go back up. And I think a lot of it is easily tracked back to, well, if my young children cannot go to daycare, and there's still some children, school-age children seem to be back in school, but a lot of volatility in that area as well. And this is leading to an inability to go back to work. Added on this fear, young children are still not vaccinated. And I firmly believe, as a parent myself, right, there is some fear that I'm vaccinated, I'm okay, but my children are not. And I can see people making a decision, look, I don't want to take that risk. It's a risk-return trade-off, and I'm not willing to take that risk.
It really seems like, as we talk about this, that there are so many factors, and all together it makes up one big thing. But just one last thing I want to hit you with. The U.S. Labor Department just reported that 4 million people voluntarily quit their jobs in June. What's behind that, and what is it going to take to come back from this?
There's many factors, as you said. And so I think we could almost say, well, we're not sure which factor, dominates any of these. But we really think that this, what I would call reallocation of labor, is a big factor. It's like, this has been a time where I've had time to think. Added unemployment benefits have given me a financial support to rethink where I want to live, where I want to work, what kind of career I want. And people are thinking, people are moving, people are saying, well, I don't want this old job back. I want something better. I want something with better hours, with a better commute. And so people quitting, again, going back to help wanted sign being a good thing, people quitting is also a good signal, because someone quits only if they think they can get something better. And so we should look at this and say, maybe there's a big rethinking of the US labor market, or of a big chunk of the US labor market, some reallocation across industries, across types of work. And that's good, but this might take time. This is a transition. This doesn't happen in a month. This doesn't happen in 2 months. This might take 6 months. This might take a year for people to make these decisions, move their families, take different kinds of, maybe having to do some retraining, some education to find something better.